So how did you initially get into music? You know, everyone sings in the shower, everyone wants to do music, but at what point did Tank really feel like, okay, this is something I want to do, you know, for the rest of my life?
Well, I mean, in high school, you know, it was really cool for me because when I sang my first time in ninth grade, that was the first time I heard the girls really scream. You know what I mean? That's the first time I really got that feeling. Like, I don't know what this is, but I gotta have it, you know? And so I started doing gospel professionally, you know, which was working for me. But when I started doing R&B in '96, I got a tour singing backgrounds with Ginuwine and Aaliyah, God rest her soul. And that tour let me know that this is what I want to do.
You started out with gospel initially. Now, why did you get into gospel?
Well, that's how I was raised. You know, I was raised in the church. You know what I mean? So, you know, it was gospel music and the Bible from sun up to sundown. You know what I mean? We was in church 4-5 days a week. Like that's just what I was born into. So, you know, I was never told that it was okay to sing R&B. I was always told that ain't, you know, that's the devil's music. You know, you don't mess with that. And so, you know, once I became of age and started to learn things for myself and started to, you know, experience my own life and make my own decisions, I said, you know what, let's try this R&B thing and see where it takes us.
Okay, now that was a big deal to sing background for Ginuwine and Aaliyah, especially Aaliyah because, you know, before her death, like Aaliyah was bigger than Rihanna is now. She was actually like the Beyonce of that era. Is that a fair assessment?
It's a fair assessment, very fair. She was, you know, she was setting the standard, you know what I mean, in terms of performance value, in terms of her music, even as beautiful as she was, having that full combination, her acting, everything was just coming full circle. And it was a great time, man. And you know, I always say, you know, God has his own plan and his own way of doing things, you know, but in my mind, I still feel like it was too soon.
Now, how did you actually end up getting on that tour?
I was signed to some guys out in Maryland, Cliff Jones, Jerry Vines. They had a company called Big Dog Records. And when I started doing R&B, those are the guys that I signed with. And they knew Barry Hankerson and Joe Moe, and you know, they kind of collaborated with those guys to put all the musicians and all the singers on the tour. And so quite naturally, with me being their artist, they were like, you know, we're gonna send you on the road with Ginuwine and let you get that experience, you know what I mean? And at the time, Pony was my favorite song. So, you know, it just kind of worked out crazy. And then when we got to rehearsals in LA, you know, I went straight from choir rehearsal to a plane to LA, you know what I mean? So, I mean, my mind was already going crazy. So we get in rehearsals and Ginuwine brings Aaliyah to the rehearsals and like listen to my background singers, because it was me, a guy named Tim Brown, and a guy named Jonathan Hall. And we were all like singers, you know what I mean? Like in the DC, Virginia, Maryland area, like we were those guys. So we knew everything. And he heard us, he had us sing something. And Aaliyah was like, I gotta have him too. So she hired me and my guy, Jonathan. And so I started kind of double gigging. I was like the all-star background singer for the tour.
Oh, so you were actually the background singer for both Ginuwine and Aaliyah?
Yeah, both of them. And it only started out as Ginuwine, but when she saw us sing, you know, she hired two of us and put us on that as well. So that was really cool.
So what were like some of the stories or like some standout moments from working with Aaliyah?
Man, so many moments. I think the first thing was, you know, because I guess people from the outside always have this perception of artists, you know what I mean? And, you know, in my mind, you know, seeing from the outside in, like I didn't know Aaliyah, I didn't know Ginuwine. You know, I just had my own perception of what I thought these people would be. You know what I mean? This super standoffish, you know what I mean? I'm the shit, don't, you know what I mean? Don't be around me type thing. And, you know, the first thing I remember about Aaliyah is her walking up to all of us and giving us hugs. You know what I mean? And saying, wow, it's so good to meet you. And oh my God, you sing so amazing. And I might have to hire y'all to sing with me. And it was like, it's like, wow, is she really like one of us? Is she like a regular person? You know what I mean? And from there, she would invite us to hang out, invite us out to eat, and buy us food, and that was the thing that most impressed me about her and Ginuwine, was that, you know, they didn't let any of this other stuff take them outside of who they were. Like, they were just good people, man, and that was the best thing about her.
I mean, Aaliyah was a beautiful girl. Did you ever try to holler at her?
Listen, I was briefed before I went on tour. Hey, you go on tour, you do your job. You leave her alone. No trouble here. No trouble. Beautiful girl, though. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, were there any kind of funny moments or crazy moments that happened on the tour? Because tour life is crazy sometimes.
I mean, yeah, there are crazy moments and crazy stories, but I mean, in terms of Aaliyah, I wouldn't go into crazy stories or moments with Aaliyah.
Now, what about Ginuwine?
Oh man, we can go there all day. I remember one time Ginuwine thinking that he could make it from the back of the arena to the front of the arena, walking through the crowd without anybody noticing. I said, what are we getting ready to do? Because the picture booth had been ransacked. There were like 1,000 people at the picture booth. At this time, the baby hair was at its height. The light skin was in full effect. There was nobody hotter and light skin with more baby hair than Ginuwine. It just wasn't happening, right? So they had ransacked the booth. So our only course of action was to actually go through the arena. This is in St. Louis. No, this is in Dayton, Ohio. And when we come out past the curtain, we're at the top of the arena. And so we basically have to walk down the stairs, walk through the floor, and get backstage. So we're walking, everybody's just trying to walk and keep calm. It's about 7 of us. Everybody just relax, just act like nothing's happening. Just walk, just keep walking. And then all of a sudden you hear this girl scream, Ginuwine! And I mean, listen, we looked and the girls looked at us and we started darting off running, and there were women literally diving on us to get to Ginuwine. Like it was the craziest thing you've ever seen. I'm talking about diving women just jumping out of the risers, everything, trying to touch this man. And I'm, at that time I was probably like 155 pounds, maybe 160. And I'm trying to secure and protect Ginuwine, you know what I'm saying, while I'm getting my shirt pulled off, my laminate is choking me, like the whole thing. And we are fighting for our lives. Like the security, the event security, everybody ends up being about 20, 30 people trying to help Ginuwine, all of us, get backstage. Like it was the craziest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And I said, I gotta do this. I gotta have this. I gotta have women jumping off the top rope, you know what I'm saying, to get to me. How do I get this?
Okay, so what was it like going from the gospel world to suddenly women that are down to do anything just to get close to the headliners? You know how it is. I know how it is. I've been on tour. So what was it like going from the goody two-shoes world to the anything goes world?
The first dynamic is, in the church world, we're trying to abstain or refrain from doing bad things, and then moving into a world where they're trying to figure out how to get into it. You know what I mean? And the quickest way and the most effective way to get into some foolishness. You know what I mean? And so, for me, coming from the church world, it was very eye-opening, because I have this thing where, there are a lot of people preaching on things that they really don't understand. You know what I mean? There are a lot of people telling people what to do and what not to do, and how they should change and the ways to go about it, when they've never really been affected by any of these experiences firsthand. You know what I mean? It's hard for me to tell somebody, man, you should really stop having sex, and you need to stop right now because, it's wrong, and every way you're doing all these women and all this stuff that you're doing. And I had never been the guy who had, had a bunch of women or had a bunch of women on me at one time and had to figure out how to fight them off and karate chop them. You know what I'm saying? I never had that experience. But here I am telling people to turn from all their wickedness when I didn't really know what they were, what the addiction really was. You know what I mean? So when I get out into this space and get out into this world, I'm starting to experience it firsthand and understand why these things are happening, understand why it's so difficult and so hard to turn away from all of this, what we used to call worldliness. You know what I mean? It's like, so, you know, I learned more in that 6 months, I think, in terms of growing up and being a man than I had learned, I think, all my life.
Okay, now, how old were you at the time?
I was 21. Yeah, I was a baby. I had, you know what I'm saying? Like I had really, that tour was when I really had like my first real drink. You know what I mean? Like I had some Long Island iced teas. You know what I'm saying? Like that was my intro. You know, I had dabbled in some Mad Dog 2020. You know what I'm saying? A little Alizé before that. You know what I mean? But this tour was like I started having drinks. Like every night I would have a beverage. You know what I'm saying? And that was different. You know what I'm saying? I had a little weed. Smoked a little weed. It was exciting. You know what I mean? And I had, you know, and I had my share of women because, you know, I was with Ginuwine and I had the laminate. The laminate said Ginuwine, you know what I'm saying? Background singer, Tank, had my photo, and women were willing to do anything for this laminate. Hey man, hallelujah. Shouts out to everybody.
What was the craziest thing you ever saw a woman do on that tour?
The craziest thing I've ever seen a woman, I don't, at this point, I don't even know what crazy is. You know what I mean? Especially in the space that we're in now. Like, I mean, you know, I've seen women get naked. I've seen women drop down straight to their knees and get to work. You know what I mean? Like I've seen it all. I've seen a group of women who you know share it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, hey, we all have to have some of this. You know what I'm saying? Like without any motivation. You know what I mean? Nobody had to coerce anybody. You know what I'm saying? We didn't have to talk a good game or figure. You know what I'm saying? It was just, let's get to this. We all know why we're here. Like this is what's in right now. And man, I've seen it all.
It's crazy how you said like that era was like the light-skinned baby hair.
I mean, Cisco was trying to be light-skinned, but he wasn't really light-skinned. You know what I'm saying? Ginuwine was really light-skinned. I mean, imagine that. Ginuwine, what, 6'3", 6'4", hair, dancing, songs, singing. It couldn't beat him.
Crazy. Now, I know we've interviewed Ginuwine before, and he talked about some of his drug problems early on in his career. Mm-hmm. Did you actually get to experience any of that during that time?
I was there for like the beginning, and you know it was real tough on G, you know, losing his mother and his father. Very, 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 very tough on him. You know what I mean? And it bothered me that I wasn't able to be around as much during those times because you know there was a little small beef between me and the guys, you know, that were managing him or with him at the time. There was just a little discomfort there in that relationship. And so, you know, I think me and G just out of safety, just, you know, we stayed love and stayed brothers, but we just weren't as connected, you know what I mean, as we were during those moments. So, you know, I really didn't get to help and be there for him as much as I would have liked to be. You know what I mean? But I would hear stories and stuff like that, and I would see him from time to time. You know what I mean? And like, you know, we'd have moments where, you know, we just sit and talk for like a couple hours because we probably knew we wouldn't really get that moment again for like another 6 months to a year or so. And he'd just tell me, man, he was hurt. You know what I mean? He was hurt. He was broken, and you know, he was trying to find his way back. You know, and so I just stayed in prayer for my brother and let him know that any time that he would ever need me, I'd be there.
Now, Timbaland was behind both Ginuwine and Aaliyah during that time. Was he actually on tour with you guys?
Timbaland was actually on tour with us on '97 tour. And it was crazy because, you know, Timbaland at the time was my favorite producer. So, you know, I would recreate all Timbaland songs on my keyboard that I had, and I would reproduce Pony. I would reproduce 1 in a Million. I would reproduce so that I could learn to think like Timbaland. Like, and then all of a sudden he's on the bus with us. And I was like, this is crazy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sitting next to Ginuwine and they sit next to Timbaland, and I had brought my keyboard, you know what I'm saying? And he was like, what's that? I was like, well, you know, this is my keyboard I do beats on. And I played him a couple of little things. He was like, okay, all right. He's like, let's make one together. And like, I'm sitting on the bus with my little keyboard, my little PV keyboard, making beats with Timbaland. And he heard me sing, and then I used to do this little thing with my voice where I had to pretend like it's a vocoder. He used to make me do it all the time. Tank, do the thing, do the vocoder thing, do the thing. You know what I mean? And so, you know, here I am developing a relationship with Timbaland, which is crazy.
Right. Timbaland has really gone down as one of the greatest producers in music. Not hip hop, not R&B, just kind of music in general. And it seems like the thing about Timbaland is that he kind of went into his music from sort of a left field kind of approach. You incorporate sounds and noises that you didn't think was going to work, but it would work. See, I remember when Pony came out by Ginuwine, we used to make fun of that song a little bit and say right around the same time, there was this Budweiser commercial, and they would sing like a frog. You know what I'm talking about?
The first time I heard Pony, I was like, what is this? Garbage. Because all the dude, ood. I was like, come on, man, that's not music. Then the second time I heard it, I was like, dude. You know, all right, okay, well, let me just listen to it. Let me give it a real listen. Third time I heard it, I was like, man, turn that shit up. This is my, this is my jam. And I started Timbaland, in a sense, you know, because I was a big Babyface guy. You know what I mean? So everything for me was piano, you know what I'm saying? Rhodes and strings and guitar, you know what I mean? It was very, you know, it's very instrumental and basic. And Timbaland opened my mind up to a whole nother world. You know what I mean? Like, it was freedom on a whole nother level. Like, you can use anything to make music. Anything that your mind can think of, anything that's available to you, you can use that to make music. And that's what Pony did for probably every producer producing in the game. It made them say, you know what? I don't have to use that as a bass. I can use these frogs as a bass. You know what I'm saying? I can, you know, I don't have to use that. I don't even have to use the kick as the kick drum. I can use a snare as the kick drum. You know what I mean? It started flipping music up in a way that it had never been flipped up before.
Right. And it's almost like with Timbaland, I think everyone developed what I feel at the time became the down south sound in terms of like really fast drums. And it was like that. And when he started working with Aaliyah, it's like he brought a totally different sound to what she was doing as opposed to what she was doing with R. Kelly.
And the writing to go along with it, when you talk about Missy and you talk about Static, like those were matches made in heaven. Like that was just magic, man. And I mean, to be able to change, he completely changed music. To me, he's the only producer that's ever changed music twice. You know what I mean? He did it then. And then when he came back with Sexy Back with Justin Timberlake, he changed it again. You know what I mean? It's like no other producer has ever done that. You know what I mean? In terms of just creatively changing an entire game. So, I mean, you know, that's my favorite producer of all time.
Your favorite producer of all time?
All time, it's Timbaland, no, without a doubt.
More than, hang on a minute. Let me think of the great producers. More than Pharrell?
He's a Timbaland hybrid. He comes from the place.
Pharrell's a Timbaland hybrid. You know, I've never heard that before, but when I listen to it, especially like the early stuff, like the stuff he was doing with Nori, it's Timbalandish.
It's very Timbalandish. I think that with Pharrell was able to tap into an abstract space that I think urban culture hadn't quite got into just yet. You know what I mean? Like when you think about Pharrell, like Pharrell was like the first early skateboard rocker kid. You know what I'm saying? Like he was like the first backpacker in a sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's the backpacker revolutionary or something like that. Like he was the first guy to go off into this space where it was like, okay, Pharrell is this black kid, urban kid from Virginia, but we might put him on the same bill as Limp Bizkit. You know what I'm saying? It was like he was one of those first guys to ever be like that. You know what I mean? To start from an urban place. And I think that that's where he kind of took his turn and found his niche.
Right. I mean, there's Dr. Dre, of course.
Dr. Dre is, I'll say, probably the most consistent producer of all times. Because Dr. Dre has always had what is a Dr. Dre sound, period, point blank. You know what I'm saying? And he muscles that sound on you. I don't care whether it's the Chronic 2001 or whether it's something that's getting ready to come out in 2016. You're going to know that that's Dre. It's Dre's sound. It's not. It just is what it is. And no matter how much time goes by when Dre pops on a Dre song with them heavy strings or that heavy piano or a live flute, you know what I'm saying? You have to respect it. You have to.
Yeah. With Timbaland, he was definitely on some shit. I mean, there's nothing you could really do to downplay his contribution. It's insane. Now, after you went on tour with Ginuwine and Aaliyah, did you stay in contact with Aaliyah?
Yeah, stayed in contact with Ginuwine, stayed in contact with Aaliyah. I then, from that tour, I got signed to Blackground Records where Leah was signed, and that's who was managing Ginuwine at the time, and Timbaland.
Now, was Dame Dash dating Leah at the time?
Not at that time. That was early. This was 98 when I got signed.
Look, I work with them on Mad. Good guys. Good heart. Good guys. Give you the shirt off their back. Is it ironic? Is it a coincidence that most of their friends are white and got white wives? They like white women? I mean.
And they develop envy because they go home. They get out the car with their friend, with their other partner, and he listening to your music. They walk in the house. They girl listening to your music. They go downstairs, the kids doing a dance to your music. Now they are hypnotized with hatred.